I never planned to cheat on my husband. Not at first. Daniel and I had been married for 4 years when it happened. On the surface, everything was perfect. He was kind, stable, predictable. Maybe that was the problem, the predictability. Life became a loop. Wake up, work, dinner, sleep. Repeat. We had stopped looking at each other the way lovers do. We became polite roommates with matching wedding bands. It was during a conference in Chicago when I met him. His name was Lucas. He wasn't conventionally handsome, but he had a presence, a kind of confidence that made you forget to breathe. He sat next to me during a panel about marketing trends, and by the time it ended, he had already made me laugh 3 times. We grabbed drinks with a few others, but as the night stretched on, it was just him and me at the bar. Talking. Laughing. My cheeks hurt from smiling. When he touched my hand, just lightly, over some shared joke, I didn't pull away. I didn't want to. I still remember the heat that shot through my arm like a jolt. It wasn't love. It was something much rawer. Primal. We ended up in his hotel room. The guilt didn't hit me until the next morning. I stood in the mirror, looking at my reflection, the same eyes, the same woman, and wondered if Daniel would know just by looking at me. He didn't. When I got home, he kissed me at the door like always, and asked how the conference went. I smiled. Lied. Moved on. But something had changed. That night with Lucas had stirred something in me. Something I didn't know I missed, being desired, seen, touched like a woman instead of a wife. I told myself it was a one-time mistake. But by the end of that same month, I had downloaded an app. One of those discreet ones, no profile pics unless you unlock them. You could be anyone. Or no one. The first message came 2 hours after I registered. His name was Marcus. Divorced. Graphic designer. We met for coffee first, my rule. But it wasn't coffee we ended up tasting. I thought it would make me feel cheap. But instead, I felt alive. Each time, I promised myself it would be the last. That I had gotten it out of my system. And yet, I kept going back. Not to the same man, never twice. That was another rule. No strings. No entanglements. Just heat and disappearance. It was dangerous. It was thrilling. And it was just the beginning. He was the kind of man I thought I had grown out of wanting, intellectual, slow-spoken, with silver at his temples and hands that looked like they belonged to a pianist. We met at a bookstore, of all places. He reached for the same poetry anthology I had picked up on a whim. Our fingers touched. He smiled. I apologized. He said, "No need to, it's yours." I replied, "We could share." His name was Elliot. He taught comparative literature at the university 2 blocks from my office. We talked in the cafe next door for nearly 2 hours. It was innocent, almost. He asked what I did, and I said marketing. I didn't mention Daniel. I told myself it wasn't a lie if it wasn't relevant. The next time we met, I wore lipstick I hadn't touched in months. He said I looked like a woman out of a French film. I told him I felt like one. That night, he read me poetry in a quiet corner of his home, and then made love to me like time didn't exist. Every touch was studied. Every kiss deliberate. Slow. Worshipful. With him, I didn't feel wild. I felt adored. Cherished. Seen in a way Daniel hadn't seen me in years. Afterwards, he asked if I'd come again. I said maybe. But I didn't. I never repeated partners. Not because I didn't want to, but because the thrill was in the first time. In the secret. In knowing I could walk away, untouched by consequences. By then, I had already been with 7 men. Some were younger than me by a decade or more. There was Jaden, just 21, a personal trainer with sun-drenched skin and a cocky smile who called me Miss the first time we met. He had no idea how to be subtle, but his enthusiasm was addicting. Then there was Leo, an artist barely out of college who sketched me after we slept together. He said he'd never met a woman who carried herself like a secret. Others were older, much older. Gerald was 60, retired Navy, his body solid and still commanding. He liked to tell stories before bed, his voice like warm molasses. He cooked me breakfast the next morning and kissed the top of my hand like I was porcelain. One of them, a judge, wouldn't even tell me his real name, but he brought silk ties and always asked if he could blindfold me. I said yes. Each one gave me something Daniel hadn't in years. Not just the physical, though, God, that too, but the attention. The feeling of being new again. Desired. There was a man who danced with me in an empty rooftop bar until sunrise. Another who took me to a hotel room in another city just so we wouldn't risk bumping into someone who might know me. One man wrote me poetry, and another never spoke at all. We only met in silence, touched in silence, left in silence. Sometimes I felt like I was chasing a high. Sometimes I felt like I was the high. But every time I returned home to Daniel, I slipped back into the same quiet rhythm. I cooked dinner. I asked about his day. I watched Netflix with him, head on his shoulder, while thinking of someone else's hands. I had learned how to compartmentalize. How to draw a line in my head and keep each life separate. But I also began to realize, the more I stepped into these encounters, the more myself I felt in them. The woman Daniel knew was slowly becoming the mask. And the woman I became in those hotel rooms? She was starting to feel like the truth. I didn't know it then, but I had already passed the point of no return. It was supposed to be anonymous. Always. That was one of the unspoken rules I set for myself: never mix names, never reveal anything that could tie back to me. I had created an entire identity on the app. Not a fake name, but a curated version of myself: no husband, no suburb, no Saturday night meatloaf. Just me, or the version of me who wore silk under her jeans and always left first. His name was Riley. He was 30, maybe 31, just 6 years younger, but he made me feel like I was 21 again. Sharp jaw, wild hair, a devil-may-care grin. We met on a Tuesday afternoon at a wine bar I'd never been to before. He ordered us both something dry and French. We skipped small talk. The chemistry was immediate. I let him kiss me against the exposed brick wall in the hallway on the way to the bathroom. I let his hands trace the line of my back through my blouse, and I felt that familiar heat rising inside me. It was impulsive, messy, addictive. Later, in the hotel room he booked, I laughed more than I had in months. He made me feel playful, reckless. When we were done, I lay beside him, half naked and breathless, and that's when he said it. "You look so familiar," he murmured, brushing a strand of hair from my face. "Have we met before?" My body went still. It was the kind of thing people say after sex, lazy and flattering. But there was a flicker of recognition in his eyes I hadn't seen in anyone else's. My heart thudded once, then twice, too hard. I smiled. "You probably say that to all the women you meet." He grinned, but I watched him watching me, as if trying to place a memory. I changed the subject. I got dressed. I left first, as always. But the next day, I got a message from him on the app. "I swear I've seen you before. Do you live near Willow Creek?" That was the suburb I lived in. And suddenly, the blood drained from my face. That night, I couldn't sleep. I deleted our thread, unmatched him, logged out of the app. For the first time in a year, I considered stopping everything. The risk had never felt so real. But the thing about lines is, once you've crossed them, it's hard to see them again. It started with a smile. One of those smiles that walks the line between innocent and knowing. I saw him every Friday morning, when I left for work just as his mother arrived to clean the house. I never paid him much attention before, just a gangly presence in the passenger seat of her car, earbuds in, hoodie up. But that morning, he stepped out to grab a box from the trunk, and our eyes met. His hoodie was down. He looked older than I thought, not a boy. A man. Barely. Early 20s, maybe. 22, as I would learn later. I said something casual. He smirked. It lingered in my mind all the way to work. The next Friday, he was there again. This time he held the door for me. Said, "Morning," like it wasn't just polite, but personal. I noticed his arms, tan and lean. The way he watched me. It wasn't respectful. It was bold. Hungry. I liked it. I shouldn't have flirted. Not in my own driveway, not in a house I shared with Daniel. But I wore perfume that day. Lipstick too. His name was Nico. He started coming with his mother more often. She said he was between jobs, helping out. But I knew he wasn't just helping her, he was circling me. One day, I worked from home. I wore a wrap dress and bare legs. I passed him in the hallway, and I felt the air shift. He knocked on my office door an hour later. Said his mom needed help lifting something. She didn't. She was vacuuming downstairs. I knew what was coming before he touched me. Before I let him back me against the wall and kiss me with that careless heat only young men have. It was rushed, messy. Breathless. My hand clutched the edge of the desk like it could anchor me to the moment. He left without a word. I didn't see him for 2 weeks. And then, a message, slipped into the pocket of my coat hanging in the hallway. "I think about you too much. N." What followed wasn't a love affair. It was a string of stolen moments in my own house, a bathroom door locked too long, laundry room shadows, a garage kiss at dusk. It was risky, far more than the hotels or city meetups. I was letting someone into the one place I had kept sacred. I should have been terrified. But I wasn't. I was exhilarated. He was different from the others. Not just because of the age, the danger, but because I saw myself through his eyes. Not as someone's wife. Not as a woman trying to escape. But as something electric. Desired. Alive. Once, after he left, I sat on the stairs and tried to picture Daniel finding out. What would he do? Scream? Cry? Leave? But Daniel never suspected. He still called from work to ask if I wanted Thai or pizza for dinner. Still kissed my cheek while I stirred pasta. Still believed he knew me. I watched Nico through the upstairs window that evening as he walked to the car. He didn't look back. But I knew he would be back. And I knew I wouldn't stop him. He came back the next Friday. Not with his mother this time. She was sick, he said, and he offered to clean the upstairs bathroom alone. I knew it was a pretext, the kind of excuse young men make when they want to see you again but don't know how to ask. I let him in. It had been 2 weeks, but his presence hit me like fresh lightning. He looked taller somehow, more sure of himself. His hoodie was gone, replaced with a plain black t-shirt that clung to his frame. He didn't smile this time, not fully, but the heat in his eyes hadn't dulled. I made coffee. Gave him the tour again, pretending we were strangers. Pretending I wasn't already soaked in memory. He followed me into the laundry room. We didn't speak. He touched my wrist, and I let my fingers slide into his. My back hit the dryer. His mouth found my neck. It wasn't sweet. It wasn't slow. And when it was over, I didn't fix my hair. I didn't even look at him. "You're playing with fire," he said, breathless, his voice almost scolding. I looked up at him, suddenly angry. "You think I don't know that?" He stepped back. Picked up the rag he'd brought, wiped his hands, and stood there, still shirtless, flushed, trying to read me. "You think your husband doesn't know?" "No," I said. "He doesn't. And he won't." Nico looked at me like he wanted to say more. Maybe something noble. Maybe something cruel. But he didn't. He left the way he came, quiet, fast, without looking back. That was the last time I saw him. I thought about texting. About demanding an explanation. But that would have broken the illusion that I was the one in control. So I did what I always did, I deleted his number. Archived the thread. Threw the coat with his note into the donation pile. Erased him. Except I didn't. Because something about Nico, the youth, the recklessness, the proximity to my real life, had cracked something in me. It wasn't about the pleasure anymore. It was about the power. The danger. The thrill of being on the edge of ruin and walking away untouched. Or so I thought. That weekend, I made dinner for Daniel. I lit candles. Played jazz. Wore a dress he liked. He smiled and said I looked radiant. And for the first time in months, I felt nothing. It began with a question. Not an accusation, not a confrontation, just a question. Have you been happy lately? Daniel asked it one night as we were getting ready for bed. I was brushing my hair. He was already under the covers, looking at me like he was searching for something behind my face. I laughed, a little too quickly. Of course. Why? He didn't answer right away. Just looked at me. Then he said, "You've been distracted." I shrugged. Work's been busy. He nodded, but I knew he didn't believe me. Not entirely. The thing about Daniel was that he never pried. He trusted. For 5 years, I'd relied on that trust. Worn it like armor. But something had changed. Maybe it was Nico. Maybe it was me. But his gaze had sharpened. He was paying attention now. A week later, I came home and found him in the study. My laptop was open on the desk. My stomach turned to ice. "I was trying to find that chili recipe you showed me last month," he said casually. "Thought you bookmarked it." I smiled, too wide, and crossed the room to close the browser. "It's on my phone, actually." His eyes didn't leave mine. That night, I deleted the apps. Wiped messages. Changed passwords. It wasn't guilt. It was preservation. Survival. But still, I noticed the way he watched me. Not openly. In passing. Like he was waiting for a mistake. I became more careful. More distant. I stopped meeting strangers. But it didn't last. Something in me itched. And now that I felt Daniel's eyes on me, it only made the game more electrifying. So I started again, but smarter. A burner phone. Encrypted messaging. Public places only. No names. No hotels. Just brief encounters in parked cars, bathrooms, bookstores. One of them, a married man himself, said I looked like I carried secrets. I told him I did. He said he didn't want to know. Just wanted to taste the edges of mine. And I let him. But something inside me had changed. It wasn't as easy to separate the lives anymore. When Daniel touched my back in the kitchen, I flinched. When he kissed me goodnight, I felt like a stranger in my own skin. And then, one night, I opened the front door, and Daniel was standing there. He was supposed to be out. A dinner with coworkers. But there he was. And in his hand, he held my burner phone. He didn't say a word. He just held it up. Waiting. I couldn't breathe. He didn't yell. That was the worst part. Daniel just stood in the hallway, holding the burner phone like it was a fragile, diseased thing. His expression was blank, not angry, not sad. Just, still. The kind of stillness that only comes before something breaks. I opened my mouth, but no sound came out. He handed me the phone, turned, and walked past me into the kitchen. He poured himself a glass of water. Sat down. And waited. I followed him. Slowly. Carefully. Like I was stepping into a crime scene. I stood across from him, heart in my throat. How long? He asked. I couldn't lie. Not anymore. 5 years. He didn't blink. How many? I hesitated. I don't know. He nodded. Like that answer didn't surprise him. He didn't ask why. He didn't need to. Maybe because he already knew. Or maybe because the why didn't matter anymore. What mattered was what he did next. He didn't speak to me for 3 days. Not a word. Not a glance. I tried to talk. To apologize. To explain. He just moved around me like I was invisible. Then, on the 4th day, I came home to silence. His car was gone. His clothes were gone. Half the closet, empty. And on the dining room table, a folder. Inside were divorce papers. And a flash drive. There was a note. Watch this before you decide how honest you want to be with your lawyer. My hands shook as I inserted the drive into my laptop. There were folders. Labeled with dates. Locations. Screenshots. Photos. Transcripts. Audio. He had known. Not just about the burner phone. He had known for months. Maybe longer. He had tracked me. Hacked into accounts. Planted recording devices in my car, in the house. There were even screenshots of conversations I didn't remember having. He had every name. Every lie. Every location. Every time. It was a meticulous archive. A digital confession, only I hadn't written it. There was one more note, tucked into the back of the folder. You wanted to feel powerful. I wanted to feel peace. You got yours. Now I'll take mine. That night, I sat alone on the living room floor, surrounded by the evidence of my own undoing. I had always thought I was in control. That I could outsmart the guilt. That I could keep everything separate. But Daniel had been playing a longer game. And in the end, he didn't need to scream or hit or threaten. He just walked away, leaving me with nothing but the truth.